In China, there's a quiet but glaring issue. Lots of empty houses, while more and more people have nowhere to live. This odd situation isn't just about money or bad luck. It's closely tied to China's own rules, known as the Hukou system, and a big mess in the real estate world caused by a company called Evergrande. Nevertheless, looking closer at China's busy cities and finding places called ghost cities, huge areas with buildings but no people, really makes one wonder, are these places really ghost towns? Or is there something else going on that we're missing in the story of China's housing puzzle? What is the role of Evergrande in all of this, and why is it causing chaos in China's Hukou system? Imagine a nation, once cloaked in the uniformity of a centrally planned economy, suddenly breaking free, its markets unfolding like the petals of a lotus in the morning sun. This is the story of China, a tale of transformation that began in the late 1970s when the country turned its back on Maoist policies and stepped onto the path of market-oriented reform. It was a gamble, a leap into the unknown, but one that would pay off in a spectacular fashion. As the country opened its doors to foreign investment, the winds of change brought with them a storm of urbanization and industrialization. Cities burgeoned at the seams as millions of people, fueled by dreams of wealth, migrated from the peaceful countryside to the pulsating heart of urban centers. This mass migration was the lifeblood of China's rapid economic growth, a growth that seemed to defy the very laws of economics. The real estate market, once a sleeping giant, awoke with a roar. It became the cornerstone of China's newfound wealth, a symbol of status, and a repository of dreams. Skyscrapers soared, housing complexes spread, and the Chinese skyline was forever altered. But this was no fairy tale. Enter the Hukou system, the relic of an era designed to control the tides of internal migration. The system, with its roots in the 1950s, was, you see, a gatekeeper, deciding who would have access to the urban bounty and who would not. It was a system that whispered of discrimination, where rural migrants found themselves outsiders in their own land, their dreams of a better life often crushed under the weight of a system that denied them access to social benefits and affordable housing in the cities they helped build. This was the soil from which the seeds of social inequality sprouted, casting a shadow of marginalization over rural migrants, leaving them vulnerable to the specters of poverty and homelessness. And as if to add insult to injury, the real estate boom gave rise to the phenomenon of ghost cities, vast urban developments that stood empty, monuments to enthusiastic construction and speculative investment gone wrong. These ghost cities, with their vacant apartments and silent streets, were the physical manifestations of a supply and demand mismatch. They were the echoes of a market that had run too hot, too fast, and was now cooling in the most creepy ways. In this unsettling quiet, the story of Evergrande gains a disturbing relevance. This real estate giant, which once represented China's non-stop pursuit of growth, became the most glaring example of the jeopardy of overreach. Evergrande's ascent to the crowning point of the real estate market was fueled by a potent mix of easy credit, aggressive expansion, and the attractiveness of ever-rising property values. It was a dazzling spectacle, a movement that seemed unstoppable, as it constructed not just buildings, but the very dreams of a nation's upward mobility. Yet the same forces that propelled Evergrande skyward also sowed the seeds of its instability. Beneath the glittering facades of Evergrande's developments, a storm was brewing. A storm of debt that threatened to engulf the company and send shockwaves throughout the entire Chinese housing market. The company's aggressive expansion was not just ambitious, but financially unstable, fueled by over $300 billion in borrowed money. This staggering sum became a millstone around its neck as Beijing tightened borrowing rules in an effort to limit the excessive debt in the property sector. The resulting cash crunch was a rude awakening for Evergrande, which found itself in a tight grip of financial obligations it could no longer meet. The company's response was to slash property prices in a desperate attempt to sell off assets and generate cash flow. However, this move was similar to bailing out a sinking ship with a teacup. It did little to stem the tide of financial woes, and as Evergrande struggled to service its debts, investor confidence plummeted. The company's shares took a nosedive, erasing 99% of their value over 3 years, a stark indicator of the market's grim assessment of Evergrande's prospects. The fallout from Evergrande's debt crisis has been profound and far-reaching. Project delays and construction halts have become the new normal as the company struggles with the financial reality of its situation. Property values across the market have nosedived, a reflection of the diminished confidence in the sector. The dreams of home ownership for millions have been dashed, if not destroyed, as the crisis has eroded not only wealth but also trust in the market, in the system, and in the future. The risk of homelessness has become all too real for those who invested in pre-sold properties. These individuals, many of whom poured their life savings into what they believed would be their dream homes, now face the troubling possibility that their homes may never be completed. The construction sector, which was once a thriving engine of employment and economic activity, now faces the specter of job losses. These potential layoffs could leave workers and their families in a hopeless situation, adding a human dimension to the economic crisis. In the intricate web of China's urbanization, the Hukou system emerges as a pivotal factor in the housing dilemma, a policy that has etched a deep line between urban prosperity and rural stagnation. It's a system that has long been criticized for maintaining social inequality, effectively segregating the population, and denying many the right to the city and its myriad opportunities. The Hukou system's impact on housing is profound. It's been reported that the urban social benefits gap was intended to be closed modestly by 2 percentage points by 2020, from 17.3%, highlighting the government's recognition of the issue, but also the slow pace of change. The system places inappropriate burdens on rural citizens seeking to migrate to urban areas, often relegating them to the fringes of the city life for which they yearn. Those with a rural Hukou face not just restrictions on their mobility, but also on their dreams, as they're denied access to the social benefits that could pave their way to a better life. This polarity is further worsened by the phenomenon of ghost cities. These widespread urban developments, often filled with rows upon rows of empty apartments, were the result of a housing market driven by speculation and the pursuit of quick profits rather than by the actual housing needs of the population. But the ghost cities are not merely a waste of resources. They're a stark reminder of the misallocation of housing in a country where millions still struggle to find a home. The contrast between these empty metropolises and the growing homeless population is a disturbing reflection of the disconnect between supply and demand in China's housing market. The interplay between the Hukou system, the phenomenon of ghost cities, and Evergrande's financial catastrophe is complex, each element worsening the others. Together, they weave a narrative of a housing paradox, where the abundance of homes has not translated into housing security for the population. As the world watches Evergrande's saga unfold, questions linger about the long-term implications for China's real estate market and the global economy. Will this crisis force a day of truth, a re-evaluation of the policies and practices that have led to such a dangerous tipping point? Or will it be a chapter in a larger story of economic transformation, one that continues to be written with each twist and turn of China's market forces? The future perspectives concerning the Evergrande crisis and its implications for China's real estate sector and the global economy are multifaceted and complex. To understand the potential outcomes, it's essential to consider the scale of Evergrande's debt, the role of real estate in China's economy, and the interconnectedness of global financial markets. Evergrande amassed a debt exceeding $300 billion, a figure that's hard to comprehend in its sheer size. This debt is a web of obligations that extends from rural Chinese homebuyers to some of the world's largest financial institutions. The real estate sector in China accounts for about 29% of the country's GDP, according to a 2020 report by the National Bureau of Economic Research. This indicates that any significant disruption in this sector could have profound effects on the broader economy. One of the most significant challenges is also the demographic shift in China, with an aging population and a declining workforce. These fundamental changes pose a long-term challenge to the real estate market, as they may dampen demand for new housing in the future. The country's growth projections are increasingly uncertain, with some analysts suggesting that the era of high investment and rapid expansion may be coming to an end. This is why the Chinese government's response to the Evergrande crisis has been cautious. They have not bailed out Evergrande, as seen in Western economies during the 2008 financial crisis. Instead, they've allowed controlled restructuring, which suggests a shift in policy. This approach aims to address the moral hazard of bailing out large companies while maintaining economic stability. The government has also introduced measures to limit the amount of debt property developers can take on, known as the Three Red Lines policy. However, the ripple effects of Evergrande's debt crisis extend beyond China's borders. International investors who hold Evergrande's bonds are facing significant losses. This has led to increased market volatility and has raised concerns about contagion in the global financial system. For now, though, the global impact has been somewhat moderated by the fact that foreign holdings of Evergrande's debt are relatively small compared to the overall size of the global bond market. In the future, investors are likely to be more cautious about investing in Chinese real estate bonds, which could lead to higher borrowing costs for Chinese developers and potentially slow down the pace of real estate development in China. This could have a cooling effect on the global demand for commodities like steel and concrete, which are heavily used in construction. As the dust settles on the Evergrande crisis, the world will be watching to see how China's property market evolves and what lessons can be learned from this tumultuous period.